I remember the first time that Srila Prabhupada asked me to give a class, actually. It was October 24th. Because, although I didn't mind leading kirtans, because through the Apple record and such, I'm pretty used to dealing with crowds. But I've always felt inadequate in speaking Shastra and being able to back it up. I'll memorize shlokas and, a year later, out the other ear. It's just, I've always felt that a Madhyam Adhikari preacher should be able to back up his statements with philosophy. So I've always been a little hesitant. And the first time he asked me to lecture was in front of a gathering of lawyers, barristers. And there were around about 200 professionals, barristers. And he didn't, of course, give me any warning at all. Instead of kirtan, he said, and this morning, my disciple Yamuna devi will give a lecture on Srimad Bhagavatam. So I looked up at him and I said, and he said, so at that time, more or less by rote, I recited the Sanskrit, Srimad Bhagavatam, second chapter of sixth sloka of Bhagavatam, straight across it, more or less memorized the text and the purport, and gave a lecture straight from Srila Prabhupada, and all the barristers. Just being. He was so proud, and it was all completely parroting everything that he said. I didn't go out on a limb whatsoever. Didn't take it off the text at all. But that was the beginning, and actually I had to go to him after. I said, Swamiji, or was it Swamiji?
We sometimes call him Swamiji. It was both.
So at this time I said, I don't mind if you ask me to lead kirtan, but please don't ask me to lead Bhagavatam. And he said, all right, we will pick on Kausalya or Yamuna. So this was hard again because, as you know, and it was brought up so nicely in the class this morning, I'm so glad that Srila Bhakti Maharaj picked the text that he did. And wasn't that purport incredible? Not only Prabhupada's purport to the text, it gave us a flavor of what we should contemplate as we're dealing with any problems or difficulties we have today in translating what etiquette should be there. Because etiquette is a garland for a Vaishnava. Etiquette's a wonderful thing. But as we're translating something that is Indian, we realized that we were in India now with Prabhupada. And as he was traveling with us, he would let us know what was maybe Hindu etiquette, because we were traveling. At this time, there were no ISKCON centers. We were just starting to travel in Ananda, India, with Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement. So we would go to these programs where there were a lot of Indian swamis that came. Some were Mayavadis and some were impersonalists. None were Vaishnavas, really. We weren't in the Vaishnava. We used to call it the Sadhu circuit. And just like in America, there's we have county fairs and country stars come, and they have their favorite country stars. Well, in India, the enjoying thing to do is take the family to a sammelan and listen to Bhagavatam, or to listen to some speaker, some transcendental speaker. So we got to know all these fellows, quite intimately, and they got to know us, because we were on stage with them, town after town, city after city, with Srila Prabhupada, before we got land for our programs. So I asked him please not to do that, and he didn't. But on a regular basis, the first kirtan he led, and he would ask usually either Kausalya or myself to lead the second kirtan almost no matter what program we were at. Almost for 5 months. Now he did that partly to show off his disciples. I can't say why Prabhupada did it. I don't think there's one amongst us who can say why Prabhupada did it unless they asked, and that isn't in the folio if they did. But Srila Prabhupada was very proud of his disciples and showing them off. He was very proud of having Giriraj Prabhu speak at the time, Giriraj Maharaj. And Prabhupada, when his disciples would lead kirtan or give nice Bhagavatam class, he would close his eyes and relish like anything. It was the same as if he got a letter from a devotee from a distance and they had achieved something. He was so proud of his disciples. And as I say, he was feeding us how to do things in India. And so that's part of what Amritsar was. There were some other really nice exchanges in Amritsar.
Remember when we went, well, we were invited to go to the Golden Temple.
Yes.
Which is the Sikhs' most sacred temple. And Prabhupada was invited, and we all went. And they're Pujari, it's not a Pujari in the Sikh religion, I don't recall what they're called. But at any rate, they were taking us around. And they had this very large chapati making operation. And Srila Prabhupada was so impressed that he thought we should have this kind of thing. And it was like picture an upside down wok that fills almost half this room.
A tava. Yeah, it's a tava, not a wok. It's concave.
Yeah,
griddle.
Yeah,
griddle.
upside down.
That's right.
It's turned over. Is that what it's
That's
called?
right. Tava. The wok is large, a little different.
Goes this way.
That's right.
This one goes this way. And there was these men all around with these very long spatula type things, cooking chapatis. And they were feeding poor people. And Prabhupada was very impressed by that. And we went into their inner sanctum where they have their Guru Granth Sahib, and he was very, very respectful, very impressed by the whole operation. And when we left, he said, Swamiji, will you please sign our book? They have a book at the exit there. So Prabhupada signed his name. And actually, he had us all gather around to watch the Raleigh work. And it says, your impressions, and he says, very spiritual. And your religion, he wrote, Krishnite. Which I thought was very sweet.
There's an interesting extension to that story of the tawa, because I remember it was in 1976 in Los Angeles when I went to see him in June, that the devotees there had a machine that was for rolling out chapatis. And it didn't quite roll them out thin enough. They were more like a pita bread thickness, a little bit on like a village chapati. And I remember, because he called me up to his room and he said, Yamuna, remember when we went to Amritsar? He said, and we saw, he said, can you go down and show them how to do? Like this. You know, I said, oh, but the tower was 25 feet in diameter. I said, was to go down in the kitchen and tell them like that? He said, no, they cannot make them. But he was very, very impressed. So Prabhupada said he learned cooking by observing. So part of this training ground, what we get from our spiritual master is by watching our spiritual master's behavior. And Kausalya and I were up again very late last night, just couldn't stop relishing Prabhupada's behavior. We hear what a perfect devotee is, what the 26 qualifications of a devotee are. But to live with Srila Prabhupada and watch him non-stop, day in and day out, I think this was an eye-opener for all of us, even those that had a little intimate association with him before India. Because how Prabhupada saw India and how he allowed us to see India was a real thrill. And even the example of the importance of that one thing of making chapatis in the Golden Temple. He remembered that not only in Los Angeles did he bring that up, but he brought that up in 2 other centers to me. How wonderful, how expertly it was done. So Srila Prabhupada, that's another thing to bring out about his character in his exchange with devotees, is how he taught us by having us observe things that were done well. And then he'd say, you go do it. And we had no idea how to do it. I mean, whether it was a man doing managerial work or no matter what, all of us had different kinds of occupations. Females tended to have a certain kind, as did his male disciples. But nonetheless, Prabhupada would oftentimes tell us to do something based on something we'd seen done well once.
Now, another interesting thing, which I learned from watching Srila Prabhupada and the way he interacted with the Sikhs, he was very respectful for their religion. He was very respectful their temple. He was never condescending. And I think that's something that it would be useful for ISKCON as a whole to learn. You have to treat people with respect and no condescension, because if you come on condescending to someone, they will never listen to you. Prabhupada was always kind, always respectful, always caring, always loving, and so you dropped everything for him because he cared for you. And he was never rude to anyone. That's an important point, I think. And we learned that time and again. He wasn't rude to Mayavadi swamis, even though he disagreed with them philosophically, and he would debate with them on end. When it was over, he was Mr. Wonderful. You know, he was always very sweet.